Okay, well, thank you very much, ladies. Um, thank you for the invitation to share. I'm going to share a little bit about healing. I don't know everything about healing, but I know enough to get us all started. And a little bit of this is from our seminar, Healing for All. And well, I'll entitle this teaching, Finding God's Will, because it's His will to heal. So if you'll please turn to Luke chapter 5, if you have your Bibles with you. Luke chapter 5, we're going to look at a record about a man who was full of leprosy. That means he was covered top to bottom with leprosy. And this is the only description we have about him. The other records don't say it's full, but the doctor does. Dr. Luke was a physician at his time, and he describes it as being full. And I don't know if you know the story behind leprosy for that environment back in those days, but they had social distancing to the max. They even wore clothes so that people from a distance recognized the color of the clothes that told everybody that they had leprosy, so they could be avoided and not touched, because if they were touched, they'd be unclean too and had to go through a cleansing program at the temple. So you didn't have family association, you didn't have friends association, you didn't have any kind of association except people that were like you. And they were all alone, lepers in those days. And I don't know if you've ever been alone for any length of time, but what it is, it's very lonely. And after a while, you get tired of talking to yourself. And that's not a godly way to have an association in life. God expects us, like you girls do, to work it out together. So in Luke chapter 5, verse 12, we'll begin reading here. And it came to pass, when he, Jesus, was in a certain city, behold, a man full of leprosy. So get that picture. His skin was falling off. He might even had fingers falling off of his body at the time. But he did not look good. He did not smell good. So people would avoid him. Who, seeing Jesus, fell on his face, a form of worship, and besought him, begged him. He was in dire straits. He had a need in his life, saying, Lord, if thou wilt, thou canst make me clean. And we've all been there. If we're good enough, if the right time we show up for it, if we put a lot of ifs in our lives when it comes to God, and then we expect God to do everything in spite of it. That's not exactly the way it works. We got to get rid of the if. And that's what we're going to do in this session today. We're going to get rid of the if, because we're going to see that God wants to make you clean. And clean doesn't mean just leprosy. It's anything. Do you know the word disease is made up of two words, dis and ease? So anything that you have in life where you're without ease, God has provided healing for that in the person of Jesus Christ. I'll throw this out in the beginning. It's already taken care of by his stripes. So there really is no ifs. But people that we come in contact with in life, and even good meaning Christians, live this word if. And so they stay outside of God's will then, because they're just not sure. They believe he will or he can, but they don't believe he will because of something, firewall they have in their brain that gets between them and their heart. So here Jesus says, verse 13, he put forth his hand and touched him, saying, I will be thou clean. I will be thou clean. And he charged him to do the legal things to prove his cleanliness so he could get rid of those ugly clothes and he could have relationships again. Where did all this disease and sickness come from? Well, we're all familiar with that. It comes from the devil. But let's look in the beginning at God's will for mankind on the earth. And we'll begin in Genesis. And we'll look at some of the, I'll do a lot of reading here because I love Genesis chapter 1 personally. Golly. Genesis means the beginning, so we'll start in the beginning. In Genesis chapter 1 says, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth became without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, and God said, let there be light, and there was. God said, let there be light, and there was. So you see right away the power of the words of God. There was light when it was spoken. Shirley teaches that all the time. Believing is voice activated. 2 Corinthians chapter 4. And God saw the light that it was what? Good. God saw the light that it was good. He didn't put any sickness in there. It was good except for a little bit of sickness. Good for headaches. Good for a pimple on your nose. Nope. It was all good. All good. And God saw the light that it was good. God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and morning were the first day. And God said, verse 6, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters. Let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament, and it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. Then he said in verse 9, let the waters under heaven be gathered into, so that dry land would appear. And it was so. Continuing on the power of the words, what you say, and you can't say anything unless you think it first. There's always a thought before any action, always. That's why it's real critical that you think on purpose. And God is the great example right here. You see his purpose and you see his thought because he puts it in action by speaking words. God called the dry land earth. And God saw that it was good. But there was a headache in there. No, there was no headaches. There was no, what do you call those things with the toenails? Hangnails on your, no, none of that. Didn't have a blister from a tight shoe. Nothing little, nothing big. And the earth brought forth grass. So things are going to be alive here now. Verse 12. And the earth brought forth grass and herb yielding seed after its kind, and the tree yielding fruit whose seed was in itself. And God saw that it was good. It was good. And he already built in the principle of sowing and reaping in it. You see it? Giving and receiving, sowing and reaping. And the evening and morning was the third day. And then God had, verse 14, the lights in the firmament. And it was so. And God made two great lights, verse 16. And he made the stars also to rule over the heaven, in verse 18. And God saw that it was good. No mention of sickness yet. No mention of disease. And the evening and morning were the fourth day. And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life. And God created great whales. At the end of verse 21, God saw that it was good. We're trying to get sickness in here. Evening and morning were the fifth day. 24. And God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature. And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth and saw that it was good. And then God said in verse 26, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, over cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image, and the image of God created him, male, female, created he them. And he gave them dominion over the earth to rule, a very powerful position. Verse 28, and God blessed them and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply. How can you be fruitful and multiply if you're sick? Even weeds don't do that. You understand? So there's no sickness in anything that had any kind of life in it. God did not plan that. God did not put it into creation. God did not. God did good because that was his intent. Where are you? Verse 28, God blessed them and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, replenish the earth, subdue it, have dominion. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of the tree, yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. He even gave them a diet to stay healthy. Interesting, huh? God's intent was not for man to be sick. No mention of sickness anywhere in the creation period. Please turn to 1 John chapter 4. Toward the back of the book. 1 John chapter 4. Verse 8. He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. In this was manifested the love of God toward us, because that God sent his only begotten Son into the world that we might die through him. Nope, live. That we might, be sick once in a while through him. Nope, that we might live. See, God's intent is life. God's intent is life, not death, and not any part of it. It like the deal with the eye, that was so cool. That was so cool. I love that. That's the way God works. God works to make you better in any category of life. That's his heart. That we might live, not be sick and die. Not only to breathe, but to enjoy life also. What's John 10:10 say? The thief cometh not before to steal, kill, and destroy. I am come that they might have life and enjoy it more abundantly. Exodus chapter 15. Please turn to Exodus chapter 15. Exodus. So it's kind of hinting that God's will is health and healing. Exodus chapter 15, verse 16. Nope, 26, verse 26. And he said, talking about Moses, if thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and wilt do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. Now you can read all these curse of the law things. I mean, they covered every sickness God did in his word that you could possibly have in all of his strains. And then he had a verse in there that covered if there's anything else. God is so cool. Anyway, I am the Lord that healeth thee. That's where healing comes from. It comes from him. Galatians 3:13 says we've been redeemed from the curse of the law. Redeemed. In other words, somebody paid for it. Like it's like a coupon. I like to use it as a coupon. If you got a coupon for $1 off of a box of Tide, does it still come in a box? Anyway, if you got a buck off coupon, do you have to pay the buck? No, you turn in your coupon, and that buck is taken off your cashier's receipt at the register when you check out. You don't have to pay. If you're redeemed from the curse of the law, you don't have to put up with the curse of the law. Well, gee, it says there, if I don't hearken to the voice of the Lord, do I always do that? Oh, I slipped up. Nope, redeemed. It's paid for. That buck took care of it. You understand? It's taken care of. Your healing is taken care of. Look at Psalm 30. Please turn there to Psalm 30. Psalm 30. I'm back in the Psalms this week. I'm reading through the Bible again, but I'm not doing it straight through. I'm going back and forth to different books. Psalm 30, verse 1. Come on, turn the page, Ray. It says, I will extol thee, O Lord, for thou hast lifted me up and hast not made my foes to rejoice over me. Sickness and disease is a foe. What's it foe? It's to take you away from the word. That's why he makes it. The devil. That's why he brought it up. O Lord my God, I cried unto thee, and thou hast. What has he done? He's healed me. He's healed me. Psalm 43. Thou hast healed me. Psalm 43. Please turn to Psalm 43. And we're going to look at verse 5 here. It's right at the end. It says, why art thou cast down, O my soul? It happens now and then, doesn't it? Even a man after David, even after a man after God's own heart. O my soul, and why art thou disquieted within me? See, he's having trouble between his ears. Things aren't turning out the way he'd like them to be. And yet, hope in God. Expect God in your life. For I shall yet praise him, who is the health of my countenance and my God. Is God always your God? Yes, he is. Then he's also the health of your countenance. And it'll show up. Just stick with him. Psalm 107, you know that. Healed by the word. God sent his word and healed them and delivered them from their destructions. Look at Proverbs chapter 4. Turn there, please. Proverbs 4. Verse 20. Here we go. My son, attend to my words, incline thine ear unto my sayings. Let them not depart from thine eyes, keep them in the midst of thine heart. See, that's show and tell for God. Show and tell. God shows and he tells. He shows examples in his word, and he tells it in his word. Verse 22, for they are life unto those that find them, and health to all their flesh. How much of your flesh? All of it. Even the part that most people can't see, the inside parts. Kidneys, pancreas, lungs, all that. Isaiah chapter 40. That's a familiar one too. Please turn to Isaiah 40. Verse 29. He giveth power to the faint, and to them that have no might, he increases strength. Says, what is it? Hosea, it says, or Joel, let the weak say, I am strong. Confess what the word says. Even the youths shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. But, lots of nice buts in the word. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. Just a really cool thing. You know, the deal about the feathers, how they get new feathers to renew their strength. That's God's provision. 53, another familiar verse. Isaiah 53, verse 4. Surely he hath borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet he did esteem him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. There are two parts to salvation in this administration. One is healing spiritually, and the other is healing physically. And that's why we have use the bread and wine during commemoration or memorial services for the accomplishments of Jesus Christ for us. It's a cool thing to remember that. In fact, is they even bring that up in Corinthians 11, because they say, check it out why you're at fellowship at the communion service in the first place. Psalm 91. You know, I never read Psalm 91 till 2012. 2012. I was so impressed by it. Psalm 91. Please turn there. This is a really great psalm. Psalm 91. But we'll only look at the end, the last verses. Verse 14 we'll go to. Because he has set his love upon me, therefore will I deliver him. I will set him on high, because he hath known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. Doesn't say you're going to be without trouble. It just says he'll be with you in that trouble. And then this verse here. With long life will I satisfy him and show him my salvation. A satisfying life. A satisfying life. a very satisfying life. That's our God. In Luke 5, you remember the leper said, if thou wilt, thou canst make me clean. See, he had that in his mind, that it was conditional. And that happens to us a lot too, because Proverbs 23:7 says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So if I want to change my so is he, I got to change what I think. And because Proverbs 4:23 says the issues of life are from the heart. See, it comes out. Whatever's in there comes out sooner or later, and it has an effect in your life. And if sickness and disease is the will of God, then why go to the doctor? Because if you're going to the doctor to get better, you're going against the will of God. You understand? Now, that doesn't mean you don't go to a doctor. I'm not saying that. I'm saying if it's not the will of God, if healing is not the will of God, then sickness is. So you don't want to go against the will of God. But God's will is healing. God's will is healing. God's will is healing. 3 John 2. Let's look at that. 3 John 2. Yes, we will. This is one of our old standby verses. Come on. Whoops. Flipped right by it. There we go. 3 John 2 says, Beloved, I wish or I desire above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospers. That prosperity is have a successful journey. It could mean some money too, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. It's used in Romans 1, where Paul's talking about having a successful journey to go to Rome to minister to the saints there. So you can look that one up. For is a conjunction. Can be translated because. Because I rejoiced greatly when the brethren came and testified of the truth that is in thee. Thy word is truth. So they had the word, the lady and her son were into the word. Even as thou walkest in the truth. Walk as a figure of speech for a lifestyle of the word. And then he responds, I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in truth. 2 Peter 2:24, by his stripes you were healed. Did the guy get healed, the leper? Did he get healed in Luke chapter 5? Yes, he did. Why did he get healed? Because it's God's will for healing in life, for people, for plants. And according to the early days after I got born again, even wash machines. We used to minister to wash machines too if they didn't work. Everything. We laid hands on everything, didn't we, honey? It's fun watching God work and working with you in your life and where you're at. You don't have to know everything to reap the benefits of God's provision. You don't have to know everything about healing to get healed. You don't have to know everything about healing to minister healing. You just have to take your healing and then you give it away to someone else. God bless you.